It's that time of year again. Shorter days, beautiful lights, tinsel and eggnog. These may be a few of the things that you think about when you think of Christmas. Family, open fires, turkey, potatoes, Brussels sprouts, stockings, crackers, Bucks Fizz, decorations, the tree, oh and of course, let's not forget the gifts. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. With all of this choice and expectation, Christmas can be a difficult time. And unfortunately, it can also bring with it stress, anxiety, debt, and even shame. So even though this should be one of the best times of year, why are many of us so discontent? Perhaps we're doing something wrong. Okay, so maybe not all of us have this pessimistic Scrooge-like view of Christmas, and some of us may genuinely have it all together, but I'm sure we're all too familiar with the eye rolls and implicit dread that comes with this peculiar holiday. Despite somewhat questionable origins, a lot of interesting things happen around Christmas. Many of us give and receive gifts from our family, some get bonuses from our employers, and some think up extravagant plans to spend their holidays in places like Lapland or New York City. Unfortunately, the one thing that all of us share in common with this international and widely accepted tradition is a time of unparalleled expectation stemming from unavoidable comparison and alarming disarrays of choice. So what does this look like? Perhaps you've caught yourself becoming envious of your friend whose partner bought them something much nicer than yours did. Or maybe you've been upset at your employer for giving your colleague a much larger Christmas bonus than you. Or maybe you're just saddened by the fact that you can't afford all of the extravagance that everyone else around you seems to be indulging in. In many ways, Christmas is the climax of keeping up with the Joneses, and this has a massive influence on our livelihoods. Many of us are probably familiar with the Theodore Roosevelt quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy," or the William Shakespeare quote, "Expectation is the root of all heartache." But I think many of us don't really realise the psychological extents that these everyday comparisons have on our lives. And with all the comparison that comes with the holiday period, I think we could have a more rewarding time by gaining an awareness of our own tendencies for self-sabotage, which are born from these subconscious and increasing habits of continuous comparison. First off, I just want to say that comparison isn't all bad. Psychologically, comparison is an essential tool that helps us evaluate our positions in society. Sometimes our subjective experiences aren't always so clear, so the only way we can figure out if we're normal or not, whatever that means, is by comparing ourselves to others. For instance, questions like, is my current relationship healthy? Or am I being treated right at work? Or even, am I eating too much pizza? These are all things which aren't easily answered without looking to the experiences of those around us, which grants us valuable insight in forming our own future decisions. If we didn't have comparison, it would make it almost impossible to learn. However, problems arise when unreliable presumptions of our own inadequacy become a difficult thing to bear. This is the reason why some of us don't like spending time around those who are more successful or better looking than us, or why we can't stand being around happy couples when our own relationships don't really match up. These are all problems that we all deal with to some extent, and if overcoming the negative feelings of comparison was easy, we'd all probably be a lot happier. So it helps to understand the deeper reasons as to why we feel like this. This whole comparison thing is very linked to something we call status, something that is a lot to do with our sense of pride, prestige, and value. The economist Robert Frank aptly illustrates this in a striking study which asks, if given the option, would you rather A. Live in a 4,000 square foot house when everybody else lives in a 6,000 square foot house, or B. Live in a 3,000 square foot house when everybody else lives in a 2,000 square foot house? What's remarkable is that the majority of people choose option B, despite being objectively worse off than if they had picked option A. Why is that? Surely in our consumerist society, everyone would like a larger or more valuable home if given the option, but apparently this isn't the case. This illustrates how our own ego's quest for status actually causes us to make objectively poorer decisions for our lives. Some of us may feel that we're clever enough to pick the objectively better option, but we can't deny the fact that we are surrounded by people who may not think this way, which then influences our own decisions regardless of what we really think. This shows how comparison in relation to status easily trickles down into everyday life, and we can probably conclude that often we're not so logical. This study illustrates to us that our whole concept of someone's wealth is something that is relative rather than absolute. It's always been fascinating to me that if you're below the poverty line here in the UK, you actually live a better life than centuries ago noble men and women. Everyone here in the UK has access to our National Health Service, modern medicine, electricity, running water, and abundant clothing, all things which weren't so available centuries ago. Even though some of us may feel subjectively poorer, it doesn't change the fact that when we broaden our comparisons, objectively, we are far better off. So around this idea of status, I often wonder if people would still buy the same BMWs or Louis Vuitton handbags if they didn't have the logo. If these goods were viewed from a purely functional standpoint, the price tags would seem absolutely ridiculous. So what this idea of status does is cause us to fall into the trap of conspicuous consumption and branded goods. When you think about it, if BMWs, Louis Vuitton handbags and Balenciagas were all commonplace, I'm quite sure that you probably wouldn't want them as much as you currently do. And you, like everyone else, would probably feel the need to climb the status ladder by unnecessarily inflating your lifestyle. This kind of logic is becoming increasingly commonplace in today's society, and all it does is end up in a never-ending consumerist spiral that results in people buying increasingly larger houses, more expensive cars, enormous diamond chains, and super yachts. And all of this happens because of the inward quest for status. With the advent of the internet, we are comparing ourselves to others more and more. This is why I think it's important, more than ever, to become increasingly aware of the negative effects that prolonged comparison can have on our mental health, and I found that it helps to have a strategy in hand to avoid making these often destructive comparisons with others. It's interesting that even though we know that comparison is bad for us, we still continue to do it. But when it comes to things like alcohol, caffeine, or fast food, most of us have the incentive to stop. This is because our bodies tell us when we've had too much, and we have social cues from those around us day to day. But when it comes to self-comparison, we don't know how to stop. This is because there are no social cues about shopping less or reducing our social media consumption, and our bodies don't give us any cues either. So some of us just get slowly unhappier and depressed the more we let it happen, which is kinda scary. So one conclusion I've drawn is that I just have to limit my tendencies for self-comparison like I would with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee. Limiting our tendencies for comparison requires a little more self-awareness and self-control. I covered this in my video on confronting digital addiction, but I find social media to be the main culprit for this indulgence of self-comparison, so I completely deleted it from my phone. I've found, like the authors of Make Time, Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky, that by limiting our smartphones only for things like audiobooks, health apps, transportation and food apps, we make sure that we get only the very best from them, whilst avoiding all of their drawbacks. And I think that this is probably the least detrimental way to confronting this problem without downgrading to a flip phone. Another way we can limit comparison in the realm of decision making is by simply choosing to spend more time alone with ourselves. As an example, I remember before I started university, I actually had no idea what I wanted to do in life, and even after finishing 3 degrees and working as an architect, things didn't become so clear until later. The only way I actually figured out what I wanted was by taking an honest look at myself, and using those eventual realizations to establish clear goals. This is something that I only felt able to do once I stopped comparing myself to society's expectations from me. One question that really helped was, if I won the lottery tomorrow, what would I really want to do every day for the rest of my life? When considering this question, you may get an idea of what it is that you really want to be doing. So once you've asked yourself this question and found the answer, write it down and establish clear goals towards it. This preoccupation with pursuing purpose and fulfillment is much more rewarding than distracting ourselves by scrolling through social media or shopping for things that we don't really want or need. Other than having to practice self-discipline to limit our love for self-comparison, practicing gratitude is huge. The more you read into gratitude, the more you realize that it is something that is practiced by almost every religion and every philosopher that you've ever heard of. Unfortunately, the reason we feel miserable with our situation, despite being far better off objectively than others throughout history, is because our comparisons are with the wrong people. When you think about the bigger picture, even having the ability to watch this video makes you someone who has so much to be grateful for, to be living on this earth at this amazing time and in this incredible society. It always makes me laugh when Gary Vee says you could have been some inanimate object like a bus, but you're not. You're here watching this video on a piece of technology that didn't even exist a couple of decades ago. Whether you practice gratitude through journaling, prayer, or meditation, it's a massive factor in maintaining our levels of contentment throughout the day. Especially with the holiday season now upon us, our tendencies for comparison and expectation are going to be higher than ever. So by becoming aware of our self-destructive tendencies, we can limit ourselves to fewer cups of comparison and glasses of expectation every day and become more preoccupied with the things that truly matter, like family, fulfillment, and health. As someone who's viewed as a minimalist, I don't really like receiving gifts, as I just hate the burden of being weighed down with more stuff as I already have everything that I need. If you're struggling with someone as irritating as me this holiday period, non-material gifts that benefit towards growth and fulfillment are ideal, so gifting memberships is a great choice. So you may want to consider platforms like Skillshare, who are the sponsors of this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people like me. On there you can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. And you can check out classes on things like photography, cooking, animation, coding, and more. I've been trying to improve my usage of animation in my videos lately, so I got a lot of value from a class by a motion designer and videographer called William Kessling on animation for graphic designers, how to animate a logo. I'm completely useless at using After Effects, so I appreciated how this class goes through everything from an absolute beginner's perspective. Skillshare is created specifically for learning, meaning that there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, so if you're interested in replacing your social media usage with something a little more productive and rewarding, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Finally, I just want to say a big thank you if you've made it to the end of the video, as there's really so much that we don't know about the psychological effects of these new technologies. So hopefully with these insights we can all be a little more informed to have what's hopefully a more pleasant holiday season this year, despite what's currently going on, because after this shocker of a year, I think we all need it. Once again, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.